and they represent really the technology available at the time. You've always heard, if anybody's seen a Civil War spiel from anybody or a show, they always say it's a time of great technical innovation. I'd actually like to say it's probably a time of recognizing the technology they had available and how effective it could be. Because if you consider what was used during the war, the only real technical advancement they made during the war is they made all-metal fighting ships. That was a thing invented during the war. These weapons were all patented well before the war in some cases. This is the latest version. It's actually an Enfield. It's not the Springfield that's pictured there, but it's representative. They're damn near identical. This is the latest military technology at the time, the latest reliable military technology at the time. That's the thing you have to remember. Guys that supply armies aren't interested in flash, they're interested in the thing going bang. And if it's real elaborate and complicated, they're afraid it's going to break. So when both armies, we had a tendency to be conservative when they put troops, as armies are today. I know it doesn't seem that way because we got all kinds of wonderful weapons now. But all those wonderful weapons were all developed probably in the 90s, and they're just being deployed today. That's kind of that conservatism. Bring it in the shade. This is a breech-loading externally primed weapon. This is a muzzle-loading externally primed weapon. These are both magazine-fed internally primed weapons. What do I mean by that? Well, externally primed means that while I may have the bullet and the powder together like this, the thing that sets it off is external. Something that's called a cap, like this. Okay? Guys, go ahead and take a look at this. Don't worry about it. It's deactivated unless you're allergic to flour. This is another example of a cartridge. It's a paper cartridge for one of these weapons. I'll tell you which one here in a second. The first one I'm passing around where you can see the lead bullet, that actually goes with this weapon, which is a breech loading weapon. So you push the cartridge up here in the breech, you close the breech. There's a very sharp edge on the block here that will cut the cartridge off, exposing the powder. You'll then take the cap off, put it on the back here. You see that nipple, looks like a nipple, it's called a nipple. That actually sets it off. That's the external part of it. Something else sets it off. This is also externally primed, but it's not breech loading, or it's not breech loading, it is muzzle loading. So if I need to load this weapon, I actually have to get a cartridge. I always have to get a cartridge out of the cartridge box, by the way, regardless. Get a cartridge, tear it off, pour the powder down, put the ball in, take the ramrod out, ram the charge down, take it back out, move it back in, and you'll notice I'm keeping my hand out of the way of the muzzle because these get hot and you can set black powder off with heat as well as amber. Then I'll pick it up, put the cap on, and I'm ready to fire. Okay, that's a long progression of steps. This one's simpler in that all I have to do basically, drop the breech, take the cartridge, put it in, bring it up, prime it, and shoot it. A good rate of fire for this was considered 6 rounds a minute. A good rate of fire for this weapon was considered 3 rounds a minute. Obviously, individuals with good capability could do better, but that was considered a good average. If your unit could do 3 rounds a minute with this weapon, you were considered a good unit. And this is under fire. Okay. This one is internally primed. What I mean by that is everything's in the cartridge. You'll notice there's a hole in back. That's where a thing called a primer goes. That's the thing that when the pin hits, it sets it off and the bullet gets set off. So as you can see, when you get into that situation, you now can do things with these weapons you couldn't do with the other ones. Those cartridges are very fragile. I'm sure you noticed that as you handle them. Well, you can't put a lot of them in a gun. In fact, you can only put one of them in. With this, you can put more than one. You can put many. It's behind me. Okay. Okay, you can put 7 rounds in this gun. The rounds are the size of the one I'm passing around. Okay, so metal cartridge gives you that. Second thing it lets you do is it lets you have a more mechanically complicated firing mechanism and thus be able to fire a little faster. So I can now feed these through this. So on the downstroke I eject the round, on the upstroke I chamber a round. And then it fires from this hammer. This particular weapon actually does not activate the hammer with the downstroke. Those of you that are familiar with lever action weapons, you'll note that when you pull the hammer back, the lever down, and I'll show you on the Henry, there's a piece that comes out of back, a bar that comes back and pushes the hammer back. So you don't have to cock it, kind of consider it. They didn't do that with this weapon. They considered that too complicated. It was too fragile. So you had to cock this yourself.
What's the name of this weapon?
This is the 1860 Spencer rifle. Okay, the next round that's coming around goes with the Henry rifle. And this is the 1860 Henry. It was invented by a man named Tyler Henry. It was based on an earlier weapon called the Volcanic. The breakthrough that Tyler Henry did is he invented the cartridge. Now, sadly, I don't have an original cartridge. They're very rare. But Tyler Henry invented the cartridge that this gun uses. That's actually what made this possible. This is an interesting gun in that it also has a tube, but the tube is under the barrel. I load it by pulling that follower up, and it's called a follower because once it's loaded and you shoot and work the lever, it goes. I'm sure those of you that have shot lever action guns can see the problem. You have to move your hand eventually as this goes up and down. Anyway, you bring it up, rotate it around, drop your rounds in, take it back, put the follower, and then it'll start shooting. The way this works is when you work the lever, here's that bar. Everybody see that? Brings that hammer back. So that means that on the upstroke, when you chamber the round, I can just pull the trigger. So I can get a higher rate of fire from this. This weapon was not adopted by the U.S. military because it was considered too fragile, and they probably were right. This weapon was adopted by the U.S. military. It was considered more robust. It had fewer moving parts. It was also easier to clean. Military spec weapons are supposed to be easy to clean. This is easy to clean. You boil some water, you pour it down the barrel, you scrub it with a rag. This is easy to clean. You drop the lever, you boil some water, you put some water down the barrel, you scrub it out with a rag. This one's easier to clean because you can take this entire mechanism out. There's one screw. I remove that screw, this all comes out. Now I boil some water, get a rag, and I scrub out the barrel.
Are they all rifled?
They're all rifled, every one of them are. This was actually officially adopted by the Union forces, and officially means that they bought them through official sources. As I said, all these weapons were used in the war, but troops bought their own Henrys. They would spend their own money. They considered the ability to have 16 rounds that they could fire in 16 seconds a critical ability and worth the money, if they had the money. You'd pay $42 for a Henry rifle in the Civil War. A private in the Union Army got paid $13 a month. Spencer was a little cheaper. At bulk, you could get them for $24. But that's still 2 months' salary. So that's a fair amount of money. Okay, I'm going to do 3 rounds out of the Spencer. I'm going to do 3 rounds out of the Henry to show you the difference between the two weapons. One of the neat things about being adopted by the U.S. military is people made equipment for it. This is something called the Blakesley box that was made for the Spencer. And the way it works, and I'm going to use these period correct plastic shells. The way it works is the Spencer takes 7 rounds. So you drop 7 of your period correct plastic shells down here. Now I'm only shooting 3. And it goes in your cartridge box, and you close it, and that's up against the top. Nothing spills out. You can run around with it. This is actually designed to be used from a horse. When you need it, you plop it open, take it out, pour it in the butt, put it back in, or if you're being shot at, you throw it away, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to actually do that when I load this. So I'm going to load both these and shoot them. Okay, so When you load the dispenser, the manual says you're supposed to bring it like this. Open your cartridge box, take out your tube, pour the rounds in, remove the tube, close the box, put it back in, and you're ready to go. Okay, that didn't take long. What'd that take? Maybe 8 seconds? 10 seconds? Now I'm going to shoot this. Not bad, considering that those 3 rounds would take a minute from this gun. And given I'm rusty, probably a minute and a half. Okay, I'm again going to bring some period correct plastic bullets out. And I'm going to pick 3 for the Henry.
Are they blank?
They are blanks. We typically don't like to shoot live ammunition while people are around, unless they're very annoying. Like I said, you know, everybody had a cartridge box. Typically they used this kind of cartridge box that either was with a strap, which is an older model, or on your belt. So they would have to get their cartridges out of a cartridge box. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage. I'm kind of cheating here because not a lot of troops use these. I just kind of want to give you an idea of what an advantage it was to have the U.S. military officially adopt something, as opposed to kind of buying your own. Okay, so I've got my rounds. I'm going to take my Henry, rotate it up, drop the rounds in, sadly one by one. Drop it down, and now I'm going to shoot. Now you're going to see a big advantage with the Henry, so don't be surprised, all right? The rates of fire are probably about the same for both. It's envy. It's Henry envy. The rates of fire for both weapons were probably about both if you consider how much time it took to load both. Anyway, that's it. Anybody have any questions? Hi, my name is Greg Warnke. I'm a historical reenactor, and we're here at Fort Defiance to do a living history program. I'm personally interested in small arms during the Civil War, and I've been demonstrating various small arms used during the war and used in this theater of operation, including firing demonstrations. We had a great turnout, and I hope everybody had a good time.